approved. That is the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. And it says immediate. This is to inform the general public and our clients that a price review proposal presented by the renal dialysis unit is yet to receive consideration and approval by the management of Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Any proposed fee will be forwarded to Parliament through the Ministry of Health for approval. It is only after the due parliamentary approval that any revised fees will be implemented. The hospital management appreciates the challenges confronting renal dialysis patients, and we will continue as we have done over the years to collaborate with stakeholders and philanthropists to help subsidize dialysis reagents and services for the treatment of many patients. An outstanding example of this is the First Sky Group, which has provided free dialysis services over the past 8 years, with more than 200 patients benefiting yearly, a gesture that has tremendously improved the survival rate and quality of life of our renal patients. Management will continue to keep the welfare of our renal patients at the center of any discussions, and we welcome any other support from the public-spirited individuals or organizations in this regard. Thank you. Issued by the management, Kolebu Teaching Hospital, dated Wednesday, 27th of September. But my sources at Kolebu, and I told you I have a whole dossier on Kolebu that I'll be sharing with you as we travel along. I've started already. The notice we have says that cost of dialysis has been increased from 380 cedis to 765.42 pesos. And then my source says, oh yeah, he saw it. He said, so I had a chat. He says, yes, I saw it. It's ridiculous. And he says, it just verified with the accountant at the renal department, and it's true. That is what he has said there. Now, we will get into those conversations in a bit, but this is just to run by you the release from Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Honorable Maham Ayariga joins us on the phone line. He's the MP for Boku Central and a member of the National Democratic Congress Council. Good morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning.
Great. How are you?
As you can see, the country is in total disarray, and we're all struggling to survive it.
I see. Now, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice has had reason to send an advisory to the Ghana Police Service, particularly addressed to the Inspector General of Police, on how they have dealt with demonstrators and would-be protesters in accordance with the Public Order Act and also the use of discretion, etc. What are your thoughts regarding what the Sraj has written to the Ghana Police Service?
It's unfortunate that it has come to this, and then we'll need Sraj to even be advising the police on how to conduct themselves in relation to citizens who seek to exercise their right to demonstrate and express their views on public matters. Sraj is definitely right. The poster of the Ghana Police Service appears to be one of they giving people permit for them to carry out demonstration. Clearly, that is not the intention of the law. In fact, it is not what the law says. It is simply an issue of giving them notice. If they have issues with what the protesters seek to do, they are required to go to court. But the way that even lawyers have approached the act of the police rushing to court, for me, is what is flawed. Because the assumption is that when the police rush to court and file an application for injunction, then you are stopped from carrying out the protest. I disagree with that position. The right to demonstrate and express yourself as a citizen is so fundamental that merely running to court and filing the process without the court expressly issuing an order that you should hold on with the demonstration, for me, does not cut. So I totally disagree with this attitude of some lawyers taking a position that once you run to court and then you file an application for injunction, then all the parties must say whatever it is that they want to do. Not in the case of the exercise of a fundamental human right. That is my position on the matter. I don't think that the Human Rights Advisory addresses this particular issue.
Mm-hmm.
All they have said is that in going to court, the police must be more transparent, more timeous, and must make sure that the parties are given an opportunity to participate in the court proceedings. I think that is also a very important point, because the police seem to be playing games. They will go to court without you knowing, and then they will invite you at the last minute to come for a discussion of your route. And when you are in their office to discuss your route, then they'll come and serve you with the court processes. So it's like they are entrapping you to be able to serve you with a court process. And the discussion or the invitation for you to have a discussion is not, born out of good faith. So those are maneuvers that the police engage in. And in engaging in those maneuvers, the police have unwittingly turned themselves into a target by demonstrators, because then they behave as if they don't want citizens to express grievances held against the regime. So then the citizens begin to see them as instruments of the regime deployed to prevent them from airing their grievances against the regime. And so police service that is supposed to be a neutral bystander, protecting citizens who want to express themselves, and at the same time protecting public property against being destroyed, and then also third parties who may not be interested in participating in these demonstrations. The police service then becomes a target of the demonstrators, and then they are forced to express their anger against an otherwise ally. So I believe that this advisory should be seriously considered by the police, so they can review their practices and the way that they engage around the questions of demonstrations and public protests. And I believe that the protesters will begin to see the police as allies, will listen to them, will engage them constructively. For instance, when they invited us to the meeting, after all this hula baloo that they were making about the Bank of Ghana being a security zone, Bank of Ghana security zone, everywhere Bank of Ghana security zone. So at the meeting, I said, yeah, we agree the Bank of Ghana security zone, okay? Okay, good. Tell us where the zone ends.
I see. That's
they
right.
were there for 1 hour. They couldn't tell us where the zone ends. We said, no, we don't want any other discussion. We just want to know where the security zone ends, because we want to comply with what you are saying. You are our police service. You are here for all of us. You say Bank of Ghana is a security zone. We say, show us the law that says that it is a security zone. You don't have a law. But let's even grant that it's a security zone. Tell us where the zone ends, because the zone cannot be ad infinitum.
Of course. So you were looking for the.
I swear, they couldn't tell us where the zone ends. They just sat there and said, oh, you see, honorable. We said, no. It's not about honorable. We just want you to tell us where the zone ends, and we want to demonstrate and come and stop right at the point where you have decided is the zone, and then you can get the governor to come and collect our petition. They could not tell us where the zone ends. So when you behave that way, you begin to display lack of good faith. And clearly, you are not even acting according to law, and yet you are supposed to be law enforcers.
Now, Mr. Whittal, in his advisory to the police, also has said that guidelines should be developed where none exist for managing protests, which incorporate human rights standards for the use by the law enforcement officials, particularly the police. Is this something that you will be interested in, to help the police to develop such guidelines so that there's no ambiguity going forward as to how protests can be managed in this country?
No, definitely. I think that it is important for them to issue guidelines. For instance, one of the recent issues that have confronted us is, where is a security zone? So can we have a clarity on what and which area and at what time, any place is a security zone? So the office of the president is a security zone. which one is the security zone? Where does the zone end? And why don't we see, notices telling us when we are approaching the area that is a security zone? So there should be clarity on those matters. You tell a Bank of Ghana is a security zone.
Mm-hmm.
And so which one, where, and how is it a security zone? Because at the meeting, they said we should go and pass through City House.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked her, but you say Bank of Ghana is a security zone. City House is also a Bank of Ghana
facility.
So how come that the head office is a security zone, but the City House is not a security zone? And they were sitting there. So clearly, the arbitrariness with which they do their work doesn't, it's inappropriate. And therefore, guidelines and regulations might help, if they are being sincere and are really concerned about, protecting certain areas that need protection. So clearly, developing guidelines will be a useful exercise. They can, and have a stakeholders discussion. Even you as an FM station,
right.
You can call for a stakeholder discussion, organize a small roundtable, invite security experts, invite human rights experts, invite parliamentarians and civil society groups, and then let's, discuss the issues that you can invite the human rights, the strike itself, and then let's discuss issues. Let's come up with some understanding of what the guidelines should cover, and encourage the police to go and flesh out the details of the guidelines.
I see. Now, if I hear you right, you are suggesting that the police sometimes do things that raises a lot of suspicion. Do you get a sense that the police then is serving the interest of say, other groupings and not really the interest of the people they are supposed to be helping out?
I think so. I think that very often the police see themselves as part of the establishment. And so they are easily, tempted to try to protect the status quo, the establishment. Otherwise, some of the moves they make, some of the positions they adopt on people's desire to carry out public protest, will be unnecessary unless they are unreasonably trying to, protect establishment interests. That's obvious. I mean, anybody who is frank with you and is an observer of the situation will tell you. That was at least telling us in an affidavit in opposition to our request to march the Bank of Ghana and present a petition, that why would they be telling us that there are coups in Niger and coups in Mali and coups in Guinea, and for that reason we should not be allowed to carry out protests here? Is it your business if there are coups in Niger and coups in Guinea and coups in Mali? The people in Mali leadership, they know what they have done, that soldiers have picked up arms against them. It's the same with Niger and then Guinea. They know what they have done, and their soldiers are up in arms against them. If you haven't done the same thing here, why are you worried about coups and etc.? So there is a way of talking and doing things that evinces an establishment interest, and so there's strong basis for people to accuse them of being pro-establishment and being anti-protesters.
We see that you're in the run-up to Occupy Bank of Ghana, where you are demanding for the governor and all the deputies in the board to go away. You have started some town hall engagements, or if you like, community engagements. Is the NDC now a civil society organization?
Can you repeat your question?
I'm saying that ahead of your Occupy Bank of Ghana, we've seen that the leader on your side, for example, has been addressing some community engagements ahead of the demonstration. I'm asking, I thought that was the reserve of civil society organizations. Why is the NDC taking that approach?
No, it's not just the NDC. It's been organized by all the partners in the organization of the protest march. And as partners, we should be there to support them. And that's how come our leader Honorable Arthur Forson joined one such community sensitization exercise. But if you were there, you would notice that all the civil society groups that are participating in the organization were also there to address the communities. And the sensitization program is ongoing. Today, I think there's one at Chairman, there's one at Choko. So there are sensitization exercises going on across the region to explain why we must be resolute and continue to mobilize and protest until the governor and his deputies and the board vacate the Bank of Ghana, building. We are not relenting in our efforts to get the Bank of Ghana deputies out of office because obviously, they have totally messed up the institution. The debt that they have accumulated for the government, the central bank, they have disabled the central bank from being, the lender of last resort. If there's any instability in our financial sector today, the central bank cannot do much to assist them. They keep boasting about, their regulatory, capacity has not been impaired. That's because it is granted by law. And so it cannot be impaired, unless the law changes. So that's not because of your achievement. That's because the law says that you are the regulator. So when you give instructions to the banks must comply. But as lender of last resort, when the banks run into a crisis and they run to you for money to sustain them, you won't be able to perform it. And that's the function that you have disabled the bank from being able to perform. And that's the reason why you must leave. If the government of Ghana runs into a serious crisis today, the central bank as lender to the government doesn't have money to lend to government because you have wasted the money. You have not been able to check the executive, that's the finance minister, from unreasonable borrowing and reckless borrowing. Now he has borrowed his way and our country has been dismissed from the international financial market. We cannot go there and then, borrow again. You haven't been able to check them. So clearly this governor is unable to perform his functions. And the sad thing that has occurred is for the Minister of Finance to write an article praising the central bank governor and saying that the central bank governor now partners with government to pay government bills. That is the most unfortunate statement for a finance minister to put out there. Clearly further compromising the governor, clearly indicated that the governor is engaged in a policy shift. And who passed a law giving him that authority that he should engage in that policy shift? When the government has money problems, he will print more money for them. And even if you were going according to the procedure for printing money, which is coming to Parliament to get permission, I don't believe that anybody will have an issue. But clearly there's evidence that you haven't been obtaining permission from Parliament to do the things that you are doing, which is a clear offense. And if the person leading the regulatory agency, the governor and his deputy, clearly can violate the law with impunity, what moral justification do you have to hold the existing banks, the commercial banks, to the standards that are required of them, if you yourself are not being held accountable to the standard of the law? So clearly this governor and his deputies must leave. They must leave. What they have done requires that Ghanaians make serious sacrifices to restore the bank to the state of viability. And that requires that either a new tax be passed to raise money to fund the bank, or there are some other funds that, is public money, should be redirected to ensure greater liquidity of the bank. And if you're asking Ghanaians to make that sacrifice, and then the same person who mismanaged affairs is sitting there, what moral right do you have to ask all of us to make those sacrifices to restore the viability of the central bank? So we need a new leadership at the central bank so that we can rally Ghanaians behind that new leadership and restore the viability of the central bank.
Okay.
Even if we have to make some additional sacrifices, then people can understand why they should make the sacrifices and have hope that the new leaders will not behave like those who have left. And it is important for all of us to come out and hold the governor accountable because the Constitution gives a lot of protection to the governor. The law gives a lot of protection to the governor. The governor is supposed to be independent. And so if we don't hold a central bank governor who has behaved this way accountable, we are setting a bad precedent for future central bank governors. Future central bank governors will feel that they can do whatever they want, and then nobody will touch them because the law protects them, the constitution protects them, etc. And the worst of it, beyond the mismanagement of the bank, is an epic case of potential corruption and abuse of office that their construction of the new head office building epitomizes. And we must not accept it. It is unacceptable that in this financial crisis that we are facing, that you go and then you put $222 million, not Ghana cedis, dollars, into the construction of office space for people to sit and work. When it is not that you are sitting under trees and working, when children are sitting under trees and learning in our villages, they are sitting in ramshackle structures. When sick patients are living in ramshackle structures and quarters across the country because we don't have enough hospital infrastructure. And yet, we will sit and watch a central bank governor who has enough office space already. And his only excuse is that where he is sitting and working, there are structural problems and that it is not earthquake proof. Your predecessors since colonial time have been sitting there and working.
Okay.
And earthquakes have been happening in this country. We have never heard that somebody has died in the central bank building because of any earthquake.
Okay.
And yet you feel that you cannot sit there and work. After sitting there for what, 7 years or 8 years, 6 years, you now realize that you cannot sit there and then you want to relocate and then you want to spend $222 million United States dollars. Totally unreasonable.
So Council,
when the Public Procurement Authority says that you should not spend more than 81 million. So clearly there's a problem there and Ghanaians must rise up because we cannot accept that.
Council,
a few days ago, we were told that even dialysis machines at Kulebu are not functioning.
Well, yes.
And then those that are functioning, they cannot afford to maintain them and therefore they have to increase the charges. How many dialysis machines will 222 million buy for us and maintain and make sure that everybody who has a problem with his kidney gets access to dialysis machines at an affordable cost? How many dialysis machines will 222 million United States dollars acquire for us as a country? Not to talk about all the other facilities. There are parts of the country you go to, no X-ray machine, no MRI machine. They are not functioning. They can't maintain them. I mean, these are if you had spent 232 million buying these things across the country, would have helped you. So we must not accept it. We must continue to demand that this particular governor and his deputies, we make an example of them, that they must leave office so that future occupants of such sensitive positions will know that the public will not sit idly by and you will mismanage their welfare.
I see. Council, let me ask you this. Have you cleared all the impediments in your way in terms of the back and forth with the police? If you read the Sraj advisory, it says that sometimes the police misapplies the law or maybe misunderstands it and applies it disproportionately, and that it doesn't lie in the mouth and the right of the police to say, well, come and see us according to the Public Order Act, give us a notice and blah, blah, blah. And then based on that, they can take a decision and stamp their feet. So I asked now, you have had your back and forth with the police. Have you been able to clear all the impediments ahead of the stated date for the protest Occupy Bank of Ghana?
Yes, we have resolved all our issues with the police. We will start our protest march from Circle or Brasport. We will take the route from Circle to Accra Central, but at Adabraka, we will turn left. We'll pass through the Ridge Hospital, and then we will take the right turning to National Theatre, and then we'll take the left through the ministries to the Atamils Highway, and then we will go to the end of the highway, which is towards the Supreme Court building, not far away from the Bank of Ghana head office, and then we'll turn around, and then we'll go and then address the demonstrators at the Independence Square, and then we'll disperse from there. So that has been resolved with the police. If you recall, our original route was from Parliament House through Rollins Park to Opera Square, then to the Bank of Ghana, and the police, raised strong issues with us passing through Makola because many of the traders, who don't have shops, have set up their shops on the pavements of the road. Some even, have encroached on the main road and they are selling their wares. And then they felt that we're going to unreasonably inconvenience the traders. That was really the point that got our leaders to agree to make a shift.
Okay.
Because they went to the route, took videos of how the place looks like around the time that we would normally be carrying out the demonstration, showed the levels of encroachment on the pavements and etc. Not that the traders have a right to encroach the pavement, but given that we are here to represent their interests, if we're going to engage in an act that will unreasonably inconvenience the traders, we also felt the need to make some concessions and avoid passing through the Rollins Park and then, unreasonably, inconveniencing the traders there.
Right.
So we shifted and then agreed to avoid the Rollins Park and the Opera Square. But then, we will embark on the demonstration on the routes that we have agreed on with them.
Great. Thank you. Honorable Maham Ayariga, he's the Member of Parliament for Boku Central. He's a member of the NDC as well as being very vocal on Occupy Bank of Ghana. We're grateful for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Do you want to make a difference? I'm sure you want to. Do you believe that